Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Let your arms go heavy, your breath slow. And as you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing what time it is, where you are, and what city or village you're listening from. It's love to know. And if you'd like more quiet stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe so they gently appear when you need them most. Now, let's begin. It begins quietly. The sky is deepening from blue into velvet, the day folding itself into the long, slow hours of night. Somewhere on the horizon, a soft, pale curve appears, the first hint of the moon's ascent. It moves without hurry, without sound, as if it knows there is no need to rush. The world will wait. It always has. You are not watching it consciously tonight. Perhaps you are indoors. Perhaps you are already lying in bed. Perhaps your eyes are heavy with the drift of sleep. But whether you see it or not, the moon is rising. It always does. The moon is not bright in the way the sun is bright. It does not blaze. It does not burn. Instead, it glows. Its light is not its own, but borrowed sunlight reflected across nearly 400,000 kilometers of space. And yet, despite this distance, it feels close. Feels like something you could almost touch if you reached up in the quietest part of the night. You may not think of it as alive, yet the moon is a constant presence in your life. You have never lived a day without it, even when clouds hide it or the sun's light washes it from the sky. It is still there, moving along its ancient path, steady and sure. When you were a child, perhaps you imagined the moon followed you as you walked down the street, could turn corners, climb hills, or ride in the back seat of a car, and still it would be there, keeping pace, never falling behind. There was truth in that feeling, for, in a way, the moon does follow you. It follows all of us, circling the earth in an endless loop, the same path repeated over and over through the ages. Its watchfulness is not personal, yet it feels personal. You can look up from anywhere on this planet and see it. The moon sees you too, not in the way a human sees, but as a silent witness to your place on earth. It knows when you are in sunlight and when you are in shadow. It knows when you are waking, when you are resting. For thousands of years, humans have looked to the moon as a marker of time. Its changing face, new crescent, half full, is a slow clock in the sky. Long before there were calendars or digital watches, there was the moon, guiding planting seasons, fishing cycles, rituals, and migrations. Even now, though our lives are measured in minutes and seconds, the moon's larger rhythm continues beneath it all, steady as a heartbeat. Light of the moon is unlike any other light you know. It is cool, silvery, and soft-edged. It bends shadows differently from the sun, giving the world a quieter shape. Under moonlight, landscapes look gentler, less sharp, as though they, too, are resting. Scientists will tell you that this is because moonlight is not a direct beam, but sunlight diffused across the moon's dusty surface, scattered in countless directions before it reaches your eyes. Poets will tell you that it's because the moon knows how to soothe the earth. Both are true. If you step outside at night, you may notice how the air feels different when the moon is full. Colors shift toward shades of silver and blue. Sounds seem closer, as if the darkness has drawn them in. Somewhere in the background of your awareness, the moon's presence feels like a quiet hand resting on your shoulder. It does not speak, but you know it is there when you lie in bed. The moon's light might slip through your curtains or paint a pale stripe across your wall. Even if your eyes are closed, your body registers it. Light has always been a signal to living things. It tells plants when to open their flowers. It tells animals when to hunt or rest. It tells your own brain when to wake and when to sleep. And though moonlight is far weaker than daylight, it still touches the chemistry of your body. There is a part of your brain, deep inside, that measures light without you ever thinking about it. It adjusts your circadian rhythm, your internal clock, to the patterns of day and night. Moonlight faint as it is, can nudge that rhythm ever so slightly. In ancient times, before electric lights, people may have slept differently during the full moon, waking more easily in the night, feeling more alert under its glow. Today, the moon still has this quiet influence, though it often hides beneath the stronger lights of our cities. The moon is not just a light in the sky, it is a partner to the earth. Without it, our nights would be darker, our days less stable. The moon's gravity holds the earth's tilt steady, preventing wild swings in climate that would make life far harder. It is because of the moon that our seasons are gentle enough for forests to grow, for migrations to be predictable, for civilizations to rise. The moon has been keeping watch, not just over you, but over the balance of the whole planet. If you imagine standing on its surface, looking back at Earth, you would see our world suspended in blackness, blue, white, and green, turning slowly under a wash of sunlight. From there, you would see how constant the Earth's light is compared to the moon's borrowed glow. And you might realize that while we think of the moon as watching over us from its perspective, we are the ones shining brightly in the dark. The moon's surface holds a record of its watch. Every crater, every dusty plain tells of the time it has spent in space, unshielded by air or water. It has seen meteors fall, volcanoes erupt, and the Earth change from a young, restless planet to the one you live on now. When you see the moon, you are looking at a witness older than any living thing on Earth, even in sleep. You are connected to it. Its gravity pulls on the oceans, raising tides that move around the globe. And though the pull on your body is far smaller, it is still there, a faint tug, as if reminding you that you too are part of this shared dance between worlds. Your body, full of water, echoes that tide in ways you may never feel, but which are nonetheless real. It is a strange thing to think of yourself as part of a cosmic relationship while lying in bed, perhaps half dreaming, but it is true. You are not separate from the moon's story. You are inside it, as much a part of its motion as the waves it lifts, the creatures it guides, the nights it brightens. In quiet moments, you might feel this connection. It could be while walking at night, hearing your footsteps in sync with your breath. It could be while gazing from a window, seeing the moon framed against a branch or rooftop. Oh, it could be here, now, as you drift towards sleep, aware in a way that needs no words, that you are not alone in the night. The moon will be there when you wake. It may have shifted in the sky, it may have changed its shape, but it will still be keeping pace, as it always has. Long after you are gone, it will still be there for others, watching, reflecting, pulling gently on the world below. And though it is silent, it speaks in its own language, a language of cycles, of light and shadow, of presence and absence. To learn that language is to remember that not all guardians make themselves known through action. Some simply remain steady and sure, so that everything else can go on. As you lie here, perhaps the moon is above you now, its light crossing the cold of space, the thin layers of air, the roof over your head. Or perhaps it is beneath your horizon, pulling still, unseen. Either way, its influence is never gone. The moon does not need you to notice it for the connection to exist. It will rise and set, whether or not you lift your eyes. But when you do notice, when you pause long enough to meet its gaze, you might feel something old stir inside you, a recognition that this light has touched every generation before you, and will touch every generation after it. Watches over the forests, the mountains, the cities, and the seas. It watches over every sleeper, every wanderer, every dreamer. It has no favorites, and yet it belongs to each of us. It is yours tonight, and mine, and ours together. The moon will keep watch, and as you rest, it will continue its journey across the sky, drawing the earth and all upon it in a slow, endless embrace. And somewhere in that embrace, cue your heartbeat, your breath, your quiet presence, are part of the great turning that links you not just to this night, to the vast, graceful movement that connects the moon and the earth, a movement we will follow more closely in the next chapter as we step deeper into the dance between earth and moon. The moon is no passive light in the sky. It is a partner, an unseen dancer bound to the earth in a rhythm so ancient it began long before life first stirred in the seas. When you imagine a dance, you might think of two figures moving together, each shaping the other's steps. The moon and earth move in just such a way. Though their stage is vast, their steps measured in the language of physics. You might picture the moon circling the earth like a companion walking around another. But the truth is subtler, more balanced. The moon does not simply orbit us. Earth, too, moves in response to the moon's pull. Both revolved around a shared center, an invisible point in space called the barycenter. It lies deep beneath Earth's surface, yet not at its core. This is the pivot of their dance, the point around which they both turn dot. It's a movement you cannot feel, but it is happening right now, carrying you through space in a slow spiral. The moon's path around Earth takes just over 27 days, yet this journey is never a perfect circle. Instead, it is slightly stretched, like an oval drawn with a trembling hand. This means the moon's distance from us changes, sometimes nearer, sometimes farther, and with that change, its gravitational pull on our planet shifts to dot. Gravity is the invisible thread that keeps this dance from flying apart. It is not a push, but a constant pull, one that needs no contact. The moon pulls on the earth pulls back on the moon, and the balance between them is what keeps their orbits stable. You may have felt the strength of gravity most clearly in your own body, the way it holds you to the ground, the way it makes your steps fall with weight. But the pull between earth and moon is not something you can sense so directly. Instead, you see its work in the ocean's tides, in the stability of Earth's tilt, in the slow shifting of the moon's face across the sky. Every night you see the moon, you are looking at one side only, the same side, always. This is because the moon's rotation matches its orbit. For every trip it makes around the earth, it turns exactly once on its own axis. This is called tidal locking, and it is the reason the far side of the moon remained unseen by human eyes until spacecraft revealed it. The effect is like two dancers holding hands and turning together so that one partner's face is always toward the other. This locked rotation is not a coincidence. It is the result of billions of years of gravitational shaping. Long ago, the moon rotated faster, showing different faces to Earth, but the uneven pull of Earth's gravity on the moon's rocky body gradually slowed that spin until it matched its orbit perfectly. Now, the Earth holds the moon's gaze forever, and the moon returns that gaze without turning away. But gravity's influence reaches beyond motion. It shapes stability. Without the moon's steadying pull, Earth's axis could wobble more wildly, tipping toward extremes over thousands of years. Such instability could swing climates toward chaos, making seasons unpredictable and perhaps even hostile to life as we know it. The moon's presence is like a hand resting on a spinning top, keeping the tilt gentle and constant. This stability has given life on Earth a stage to evolve upon, a reliable rhythm of seasons, a predictable length of day, a trustworthy cycle of tides. In this way, the moon has been a silent guardian, its dance with Earth quietly sustaining the conditions that allowed forests, oceans, and human civilizations to grow. The tides themselves are one of the most visible signs of this partnership. The moon's pull causes the water on the side of Earth nearest to it to bulge outward, creating high tide. At the same time, the opposite side of the Earth experiences another high tide, created by the momentum of the planet's rotation and the balance of gravitational forces. Between these bulges, the water level falls, giving low tide. This cycle sweeps around the planet every day, shaping coastlines, guiding marine life, and influencing human life in ways that often go unnoticed. For millions of years, life has adapted to the timing of the tides. Crabs scuttle to bury themselves in wet sand. Fish spawn in synchronization with the water's rise and fall. And even certain species of coral release their eggs only when the moon's phase and the tide's height align perfectly. Without the moon's pull, these rhythms would vanish, and the lives bound to them would change or disappear entirely. You, too, are caught in this web of movement. While the tides in your body are far too small to notice, the same laws of motion apply. You are mostly water, and the moon's gravity tugs on you as surely as it tugs on the oceans. It is a pull so faint you cannot feel it, but it is there, a reminder that you are part of a system much larger than yourself. There is beauty in this thought. You are not separate from the moon's dance. You are inside it, carried along without effort. Whether you are walking beneath moonlight, sailing across a tide, or simply sleeping in your bed, the moon is holding you in place as the earth turns. The moon's influence also extends to the length of our days. Long ago, when the moon was much closer to the earth, days were shorter, perhaps only 6 or 8 hours long. But over time, the moon's gravitational pull has acted like a brake, slowly slowing Earth's rotation. As it does, the moon drifts farther away at a rate of about 3.8 centimeters per year. Even now, the dance changes, though so slowly, we do not feel the steps. This drift will continue for millions of years, lengthening our days and widening the space between Earth and Moon. One day, tides will be weaker, the moon smaller in our sky. But that is a future so distant, it exists only as a quiet mathematical possibility, one that will unfold long after our time. To think of this relationship is to think of permanence and impermanence at once. The moon's orbit feels eternal from our human perspective, yet in cosmic terms, it is evolving, slow but unstoppable. And within that change is a lesson. Even the most constant seeming connections shift with time. Perhaps that is why the moon's dance with Earth feels so comforting. It is not stillness, but it is steadiness. It moves, but it does not abandon. It changes, but it does not break. In a world where so much is fleeting, the moon's patient orbit is a quiet assurance that some bonds endure beyond lifetimes. As you rest tonight, you are moving in this dance. The moon's gravity shapes the planet beneath you, the oceans beside you, the very length of the day you live within. And though you cannot feel the movement, you are traveling thousands of kilometers through space in this shared motion. You are part of a duet older than language, older than the first creatures to walk on land, older than the continents themselves. Above you, the moon continues its path, watching without eyes, touching without hands. Below you, the earth turns, its oceans swelling and falling to the rhythm of that touch. Together they move, bound by gravity's thread, their steps aligned across billions of years. And as you breathe, perhaps slowly drifting toward sleep, you are carried within this dance, a partner, not by choice, but by belonging. You do not have to know the steps. You are already moving with them, and just as the moon draws the oceans, it draws something smaller, quieter, but no less real, a tide within your own body. Tide we will step closer to in the next chapter. Tides in the ocean, tides in you, tides in you. The ocean's surface looks calm from afar, but if you stand at the edge, you will see it breathing, a slow inhale as the tide comes in, a patient exhale as it goes out. This breath is drawn by the moon when the moon is directly above a stretch of ocean. Its gravity tugs on the water, lifting it ever so slightly toward itself. The water swells, not in a towering wave, but in a vast, gentle rise spread over hundreds of kilometers on the opposite side of the planet, far from the moon. Another swell forms, This one created by the momentum of the Earth's rotation and the balance of gravitational forces. Between these swells, the ocean sinks into low tide. Twice each day, every coastline on Earth feels this push and pull, a rhythm set, not by wind or weather, but by the silent touch of the moon. If you have ever walked along the shore at dawn and returned in the afternoon, you may have noticed how different the water's edge can look. Rocks once hidden are now bare and drying in the sun. Pools left behind shimmer with trapped fish or drifting seaweed. Shorebirds step carefully through the shallows, their feet making ripples in places where, hours before, the waves rolled in freely. It is easy to think of this as a local change, something happening only in the place you are standing. But the tide is not a small, isolated event. It is part of a planetary pulse, a movement of entire oceans under the moon's invisible hand. This same hand reaches toward you, too. You are made mostly of water. About 60% of your body is liquid. It is in your blood, your cells, the fluid that cushions your joints and surrounds your brain. While the moon's pull on this water is far too small for you to feel directly, the principle is the same. The same laws that lift the sea also touch the water within you. Imagine standing in the moonlight, your eyes closed. You do not feel yourself moving, but you are part of a soft, unending tide. Not enough to shift you physically, but enough to remind you that you belong to the same system as the oceans. Some scientists and poets alike have found comfort in this thought that the water within you is in quiet conversation with the water of the seas, both following the same gravitational music. It is as if, without knowing, you are breathing in time with the Earth's greatest breath. Marine life knows this rhythm well. On rocky coasts, crabs and mollusks live by the clock of the tide. In mangrove forests, fish time their spawning too, the highest waters of the lunar cycle, ensuring their young are carried far into protective channels. Even corals, fixed in place and rooted to stone, release their reproductive cells in unison with the moon's phases, an ancient synchronization that has persisted for millions of years. We humans have mostly stepped away from the tidal schedule. Electric light, heating, and transportation have freed us from the direct influence of the moon's timing. Yet echoes of it remain. Some studies suggest that human sleep patterns, especially in communities without artificial light, shift subtly with the moon's cycle. Around the full moon, people may fall asleep later and sleep more lightly. This could be a leftover trace of the rhythms our ancestors once lived by, when nights were brighter under a full moon, when visibility changed hunting, gathering, and social patterns. Even if you do not notice it, your biology may still be tuned to this ancient pulse. Hormones rise and fall. Moods shift like small weather systems, since cycles in the brain's activity may align loosely with the moon's 30-day pattern. Consider for a moment the intimacy of this connection. A body of rock and dust, a quarter of a million miles away, moving silently through space, is able to reach into your body's chemistry and, perhaps, its emotions. It does not do this with force, but with the most delicate touch, one that also keeps Earth's oceans breathing, in and out, in the great span of history. This is nothing new. Before clocks, before calendars, the moon was the most reliable marker of time. Its phases told when to plant, when to fish, when to expect the high waters that could bring life or danger. The first humans to live by the sea would have known the tide's timing by the moon's shape in the sky. They may not have known the term gravity, but they knew the pattern. The tide comes when the moon is near, and it is strongest when the moon is full or new. They would have passed this knowledge down in stories and practical instructions, and observations etched into stone or carried in memory. This knowledge, though wrapped now in scientific terms, still carries the same wonder. It is one thing to know that the moon pulls on the oceans. It is another to stand at the shore and feel the water creeping towards your feet. knowing it is following the curve of a celestial body far above you. In this way, the tide is a translator, speaks the moon's pull in a language we can see and touch, and perhaps it speaks another message. 2. That we are not separate from the rest of Earth's systems. The same invisible force that moves the sea's edge toward the land is also holding you, anchoring you to the planet, pulling you into the slow, ancient waltz between Earth and Moon. Some night, if you are near the coast, you might try standing still as the tide rises around you. You will not feel the pull of the moon itself, but you will feel its effect. Water climbing higher, the shape of the shoreline shifting, the quiet rearrangement of the living things around you. You will be standing in a moment that connects you to every creature, every human who has ever lived by the sea dot, and even far from the ocean, you are still part of it. The water in your body is not the same water that was always in you. Cycles through the food you eat, the air you breathe, the rain that falls and soaks into the earth. In a way, the oceans are in you and you are in them. The moon's pull, then, is not only on something far away, it is on the very water that, for a time, calls your body home. The thought can be humbling or comforting, or both. That in sleep, in stillness, in the quiet moments of your life, you are not separate from the great movements of the earth. You are carried within them, as constant and unbroken as the tide. The tide is patient. It does not rush. It does not resist. It follows the moon's call across continents, across centuries, across the boundaries between species and bodies. And somewhere within you, in the slow circulation of blood, in the rise and fall of breath, there is an echo of that patience. The moon's pull will not stop tomorrow, or next year, or even in your lifetime. Long after your own tides have gone, still, the oceans will keep rising and falling. The moon will keep turning above, somewhere in the veins of another living being. Water will still respond to that silent call, and as you lie in the dark, you are part of it still, not watching from the outside, but moving within the same eternal rhythm. If you could step back far enough to see the earth and moon together, you would see the tides as bands of water circling the planet, always chasing the moon, and you would see yourself as part of the same moving sphere, held in the same pull. The tide in your veins may be too small to measure without instruments, but it is there. It is always there, and in that truth lies a quiet reminder. The moon's reach is greater than you think. From here, the next step in our journey will drift into another kind of pull, one without waves or currents, yet no less real. The weight of moonlight. Moonlight. You lie in the dark, the tide in your veins, quiet but present, still answering the moon's call. The ocean answers, too. The forests, the frozen lakes, the air itself. And yet, when you look up at the moon, you see none of this movement. You see only light. It is a light that seems weightless, a pale wash that rests softly on rooftops, hillsides, and rivers. It does not scorch like the sun's fire, nor does it have the sharpness of starlight. Moonlight is gentle, silvered, and diffuse, as if poured over the world from a calm, steady hand. But light, though without mass, is never without meaning. It has traveled 250,000 miles to reach you, reflected from the moon's surface, softened by distance. Each photon, a tiny packet of energy, began as sunlight, crossing space to strike the moon and bounce toward Earth. And yet, its light feels like more than just a reflection. It feels like presence. There is a kind of weight to the moon's presence, one that is not measured on a scale. It is the weight of knowing that its pull is not in the light alone, but in the invisible gravity that moves through your body and the planet beneath you. Gravity has no scent, no sound, no color. You cannot see it, but you live inside it. It holds oceans to the earth, air to the sky, and you to the ground. The moon's gravity is faint compared to the Earth's, barely a whisper against the deep anchor of the planet you stand on. But it is enough to draw water into tides, to nudge the liquid within you, to keep the balance of a world steady. When you stand under moonlight, you are not only bathed in light, you are held in a field. It's the same invisible threads that link the moon to the earth link you as well. Okay. And in sleep, as your mind drifts into dreams, that connection does not loosen. Think of the moon as a partner in a dance you never learned, but have always been part of. The earth turns, the moon turns with it, and you, bound to the earth, follow along. You may think of yourself as still while you sleep, but you are not. You are being carried through space, spinning, orbiting, swaying ever so slightly in the moon's pull. The weight of moonlight is the awareness of this connection, not the heaviness of burden, but the heaviness of belonging. When ancient travelers crossed deserts or seas, they carried with them an unspoken trust in the moon. It marked the passing of nights, guided paths across unmarked landscapes, and offered a light when the sun was gone. Farmers in every age have measured planting and harvest by its phases. Poets have written to it as if it were listening. Lovers have stood in its glow, feeling seen. To live under moonlight is to live under a history that stretches back long before you, before humanity itself. Every living thing that has eyes has known this glow in some form. Even creatures that do not see light, that live in the depths of the ocean, still feel its influence through the tides above. And so, even though light has no mass, it carries the accumulated weight of all who have lived beneath it. Close your eyes and imagine a moonlit night in the high mountains. The air is thin and still, a pea. The rocks around you are cold, holding the day's warmth only in faint traces. Above, the moon spills its light down the slopes, catching on frost, glinting on streams. You feel the space between your body and the moon, vast, open, silent, and yet, in some way, small. That distance is not empty. It is a bridge of gravity and light. Here, the weight of moonlight is not something you bear. It is something that bears you, holding you in the web of motion that ties earth, moon, and life together, even in your deepest sleep. This pull shapes the world around you. High tides still come. Fish still rise in the water. Nocturnal flowers still open. Migrating birds still orient themselves to the faint light, adjusting their course in a city, the moon's. Light can be drowned by lamps and signs, yet its gravity is never masked. Whether seen or unseen, it works through the night, shifting water, steadying the earth's tilt, and brushing gently against you. It's easy to forget this when you are surrounded by walls, screens, and electric light. But step outside into a field, a quiet street, a balcony, and let moonlight touch your face. You may not feel its gravity directly, but you can feel its steadiness. The world looks different under its glow. Softer edges, deeper shadows, slower air. This slowing is part of the moon's weight, too. Not a physical slowing, but a slowing in perception. Under moonlight, the urgency of daylight seems far away. You notice small details, the glisten of dew, the silver outline of leaves, the way your own shadow stretches longer and darker. Your body responds to this without your asking. Heart rate eases, breathing deepens, muscles unclench. The parasympathetic nervous system, the part that helps you rest quietly, steps forward. The moon does not command this, but it offers a setting that invites it, a reminder that the night is not for haste. And when you return to your bed, the moonlight follows you, even if the curtains are drawn. Its pull is still there, a companion through the slow hours of rest. You may dream of places washed in silver light, of water moving in quiet arcs, of journeys that feel both weightless and anchored. The moon has been called a guardian of Earth. Its gravity stabilizes our planet's tilt, keeping seasons predictable and climates steady over long stretches of time. Without it, Earth's wobble might be far greater. In the rhythm of life, the migrations, the blooms, the cycles might falter in that sense. The moon's weight is not just for tonight or this season, but for the whole shape of life. On Earth, every tide, every migration, every pattern in nature that depends on stability is, in part, the work of that pull. Perhaps this is why moonlight feels different from any other light. It carries the quiet knowledge that you are in the presence of something that holds your world in balance. You may not be conscious of it as you drift into sleep, but your body, your blood, your cells, they all move within the same frame the moon maintains. And so, in the deepest hours of the night, when you are unaware, the moon is still there, steady and sure, a partner in a rhythm as old as time. Its light may be soft, but its role is strong. It will be there when you wake, perhaps lower in the sky, perhaps hidden by the day, but still pulling, still keeping the balance. When morning comes and the moon fades, its pull does not leave you. It waits quietly for night, for another chance, to cast its silver weight across land and sea. And just as the tide is patient, so is the moon. It does not rush, does not demand your attention, but when you give it, you may find yourself feeling not smaller, but more complete, part of a whole you can't fully see in the stillness of night. The moon carries both light and weight, and in the next breath of our journey, we will step deeper into this unseen motion, into the night's silent current. You are still, or at least you believe you are. Your body rests in the quiet dark. Your hands are folded, your head is cradled in the pillow, your breathing has found its steady pace. Nothing seems to move, not the air, not your body, not the earth, but movement is everywhere above you. The moon continues its patient arc across the sky. Below you, the earth turns on its axis, a rotation so constant you never feel it. Around you, gravity stretches an invisible tether between planet and moon, holding you in a slow, continuous way. This way is not like the rocking of a boat, not something you can sense in your bones. It is more subtle, so subtle that if you could stand outside yourself, outside Earth entirely, you would see that you are part of a vast, unbroken current. Imagine, for a moment, you could watch the Earth and Moon from far away. You would see them as partners, turning together in space, the Moon circling the Earth circling the Sun. But the Moon's orbit is not a perfect circle. It is slightly stretched, slightly tilted, and so its pull is not constant. It breathes in and out. It's like the ocean tide itself. The silent current is this breath, this steady exchange between moon and earth. In the oceans, it is clear, invisible. Water lifts and lowers. Coasts widen and retreat. Waves lap against piers at new heights. In your body, the current is quieter. You are mostly water, around 60%. And though the moon's pull on this water is faint compared to its effect on the ocean, it still exists. It is part of the same physical law that governs tides. This pull is not about lifting you from your bed or making your heartbeat match the moon's orbit. It is about alignment. Your body's water, your body's mass, exists inside a field of gravity shaped by both Earth and Moon. It is impossible to step outside of it. The current is constant, and because it is constant, you do not notice it. It's much like breathing. You only feel it when you think about it. It is there whether you are awake or dreaming, moving or still, happy or sorrowful. The moon does not pause its influence for your personal circumstances. It keeps the same patient tempo. But here is what makes the current fascinating. It connects every living thing on Earth in the same motion, whether a whale crossing the Pacific or a fox curled in a burrow, whether a tree standing in a meadow or a human sleeping in a small apartment. All are carried along in this slow gravitational sway in the stillness of night. Its current becomes easier to sense, not because the pull is stronger, but because you are quieter. With fewer distractions, you might notice the way your body feels heavier or lighter under moonlight, the way your mind drifts with a certain softness, as if on an unseen tide. Scientists have measured the moon's influence on large bodies of water for centuries, but its effect on living organisms is a field of quieter, newer study. Some evidence suggests that certain creatures, especially those that live in or near water, have rhythms directly linked to lunar cycles. Coral reefs, for example, often release their eggs and sperm in mass spawning events timed with the full moon. No signal tells them to. They simply follow the current. Even some human biological rhythms show traces of this connection. Studies hint that the moon's phase can subtly affect sleep patterns, hormonal cycles, and even mood. The changes are small, barely perceptible in daily life, but over long stretches of time, they weave into the patterns of your body's internal clock. You are not separate from these patterns. You are immersed in them. When you close your eyes at night, the same gravity that moves the oceans moves through you, aligning you with the whole planet's motion. Picture yourself floating in a vast pool, not moving, yet still being carried. The water beneath you shifting ever so slightly in a direction you cannot control. That is the night's silent current, the experience of being in motion without the sensation of moving. This current does not need your awareness to exist. Long before humans spoke of tides or gravity, long before any creature named the moon, it was there, okay? It has moved for billions of years, shaping coastlines, guiding migrations, stabilizing the Earth's spin. It will move long after you are gone, long after the names for moon and tide have been forgotten. There is comfort in this. The silent current is larger than you, but you belong to it completely. It is a constant in a world that often changes too quickly. No matter where you sleep, the moon will still be moving above you, and you will still be part of its pull. Even now, as you rest, the current carries you toward morning. It is not in a hurry. It takes the long route, tracing the moon's position across the sky. Your dreams float along with it, shaped by the soft interplay of light and gravity. And when you wake, you will not remember the current's touch, but it will have been there, keeping your place in the vast dance between moon and earth. The night's silent current asks nothing from you. You cannot speed it up, slow it down, or step out of it. All you can do is notice it when the world is quiet enough, and perhaps let that noticing soften the edges of your thoughts. For in this current, there is no rush, no agenda, no endpoint. There is only motion in the passing of time. The moon circling, the earth turning, you breathing in the dark. And as you drift in that awareness, you may begin to sense something else, the way this current is held together by an even deeper bond, one that ties you not only to the moon, but to the earth itself. That bond is gravity, not the heavy kind that drags, but the kind that holds, the kind that is less like a chain and more like a thread you've been holding all your life without knowing it. And so, it's a silent current carries you deeper into night. You begin to feel the shape of that tether, a connection that does not loosen, no matter how far the moon drifts. We step next into that truth, into how gravity holds you. You live inside gravity the way a fish lives in water, just everywhere, all the time, holding you without your noticing. You do not feel the thread between yourself and the moon. You do not sense the constant pull from the earth beneath you, and yet, without it, nothing you know could exist. We imagine gravity as weight, the downward tug we feel when we stand, the heaviness in our legs after climbing stairs, the reason we do not drift away when we jump. But gravity is not simply down, it is toward. It is always the act of being drawn toward something massive enough to matter down here. It's that something is earth. Its pull anchors you to the ground, shapes your bones, and keeps every drop of water in your body from drifting into the sky. It holds oceans in their basins, air close around the planet, and mountains in place. It holds you as you sleep, a constant and silent guardian. But Earth is not alone in its grip. The moon's gravity reaches you too, passing through the same space, shaping tides and currents, nudging the way your body's fluids rest inside you. The pull of the moon is far weaker than Earth's, yet it is still a part of you, a second thread woven into your nightly rest. Gravity is a conversation between masses. The bigger and closer they are, the stronger the conversation. The Earth and Moon speak to each other endlessly in this language, exchanging a pull so constant it has reshaped both bodies. The Moon's tidal pull slows Earth's spin little by little, while Earth's own gravity keeps the Moon in orbit, preventing it from drifting into space. You are a part of this exchange, not in the way a planet is, but in the way a passenger is part of a journey. Your body is carried along in the shared movement, bound by the same rules. This tether is not tight. It is not a leash. It does not limit you so much as define the space in which you live. Without gravity, there would be no oceans, no breathable atmosphere, no soil to plant in, no sense of here at all. Without the moon's small but steady pull, the Earth would wobble on its axis, and the seasons, would unravel into chaos. Gravity is patient. It does not rush or fade. It is older than the moon, older than the Earth, older than stars themselves. Every particle of matter in the universe is drawn toward every other particle, no matter how far apart. The pull weakens with distance, but it never disappears entirely. Even your own body has gravity. The atoms that make up your bones, blood, and skin attract the atoms of the objects around you. You are, in an almost impossibly small way, pulling on the moon right now. And the moon is pulling on you. To feel this is impossible without tools, but to imagine it is enough to change the way you see the night. Think of a spider's web stretched between two branches. You are somewhere along one of the threads, not touching the others, yet connected all the same. Each vibration in the web, each change in mass or position travels outward, felt in every strand. You are always in touch with the moon through this web. It is not a sound, not a light, not even a movement you can name. It is a simple truth. You are here, and because you are here, you are healed at night. When you rest, you are in the safest cradle you will ever know, the Earth's pull below, the moon's gentle influence above, the combined gravity keeping your world steady. No matter where you lie, on a mountain, in a valley, on a ship, at sea, you are wrapped in this balance. If you could see it, gravity would not look like a string or a chain. It would look like the curve of space itself bending around you, the way a sheet dips when something heavy rests on it. The moon makes its own curve. The Earth makes a deeper one. You live in the overlap, carried along without needing to move. This is why gravity feels so much like a tether, not because it ties you down, but because it is the invisible shape that keeps you from falling into nothing. You could leap as high as your muscles allow, run as far as your body will carry you. Yet, the Earth's embrace would never let you go. And the moon, though smaller, adds its own gentle reminder of connection. It moves the oceans in their slow breathing. It tugs faintly at the water inside you, and through that, it keeps time. The moon's orbit has been a measure of months since humans first looked up. Even before the invention of calendars, it told us when to plant, when to harvest, when to expect the return of certain animals, your own ancestors. Long before clocks or lights lived more closely in this rhythm, they noticed when the moon's light was strongest, when the tides reached their highest, when certain flowers opened at night only under a near full glow. They understood, without equations, that the moon's presence was not just visual, but physical, that you have inherited that same connection, whether you are aware of it or not. Every night you sleep under the moon's pull. Your body is taking part in an ancient pattern, a conversation between gravity, time, and life. Even the ground beneath you is shaped by this force. The crust of the earth rises and falls, ever so slightly under the moon's pull, just as the ocean does. These are called solid earth tides, and though they are too small to feel, they are real. The very rock beneath your bed is moving with you. In this way, gravity is more like an embrace than a weight. It is not here to pin you in place, but to keep you connected to the whole, to the earth, to the moon, to the sun itself. You are not just a passenger. You are part of the system, part of the balance that keeps the planet's path steady. And when you think of it like that, the night feels different. The stillness is not still at all. It is the quiet hum of everything holding together. You can rest because gravity does not. It works without pause, without sound, without needing thanks. It is the reason the moon's pull reaches you while you sleep. The reason the night's silent current exists at all. Without gravity, there would be no current, no tide, no rhythm in the dark. And gravity, for all its patience, has a sense of direction. It draws you not only downward, but inward, toward the center of the earth, toward the heart of the moon's path. Every moment you are alive. You are traveling inside this unseen flow. When you wake in the morning, you will have been carried further along the Earth's orbit, further along the moon's journey. The tether will still be there, holding you. Steady. It always will be. And as you drift deeper into this awareness, you might begin to wonder about the path the moon takes above you, the way it glides from horizon to horizon, changing its pull as it goes. That is where the journey leads. Next, to the moon's journey above. You lie still, but the moon is moving. It does not rise with a sudden leap, nor set with a sharp drop. Its journey is slow, deliberate, and ancient, an unbroken path it has taken for billions of years. Even as you sleep, the moon makes its way across the vault of night, weaving gravity and light into the world below. You might imagine it as a silver boat adrift in a dark sea. The stars are its distant companions, and Earth is the harbor it circles endlessly. Yet this voyage is not aimless. It is a rhythm, a route set long before the first breath of life on this planet. The moon's journey begins for you when it peaks over the horizon. This is not a true beginning. The moon has been moving all along. It's hidden in daylight or on the far side of the earth. But the moment it becomes visible, something ancient stirs in you. Your eyes are drawn to it, just as they were for the humans who first charted its phases on stone. It rises not exactly at the same time each night, but later, by about 50 minutes. This slow shift is part of its rhythm, the reason it cycles through all its shapes, from new to full and back again. It travels eastward, relative to the stars, hold forward in its orbit around Earth, even as Earth spins beneath it. The path that the moon takes is not perfectly straight across the sky. It tilts, it sways. It rides a curve called the ecliptic, the same broad band in which the sun moves. This tilt is the reason some nights the moon climbs high overhead, and other nights it stays low, grazing the horizon like a shy visitor. You cannot feel it, but as the moon moves, so does its pull on you. When it is directly overhead, the gravitational tug is at a different angle than when it hangs low. In the oceans, this difference shapes the tides, drawing water toward the point under the moon and, in a mirrored way, on the opposite side of the planet. In you, the effect is gentler, almost imperceptible, yet it still exists. Threading through your body's own rhythms, its light changes as it journeys. Rising, it may glow orange or gold, its light scattered by the thickness of Earth's atmosphere. Higher in the sky, it turns pale and silver, untouched by the dust and haze that cling to the horizon. Near setting, it warms again, skimming back into the veil of air. The moon's journey above you is not only a story of movement in space, but of time itself. As it travels, the world below shifts in subtle ways. Shadows lengthen, then contract. Nocturnal animals adjust their behavior. Some hunt best in the bright wash of moonlight. Others hide until darkness deepens. Even plants respond. Certain flowers open at night, in tune with the moon's glow, timing their blooms for the insects that navigate by its light. For most of human history, the moon's journey was a clock in the sky. Its position told the time of night. A tease told the time of month. Fishermen knew when tides would be high or low by watching its climb. Farmers planted or harvested under certain moons. Travelers in deserts and seas used it as a guide, trusting its slow arc more than any map. Tonight, as you lie in bed, you are part of that long tradition, though your journey is inward while the moon's is outward. You do not need to rise to follow it. The knowledge that it is there, moving steadily, is enough to anchor you in the vastness of night. There is something calming in knowing that this path does not change. Not in any way you will notice. The moon rises, it sets, it waxes, it wanes. It makes its orbit in 27 days, yet because of Earth's own motion around the sun, it takes about 29.5 days for the same phase to return. This is the lunar month, the quiet heartbeat of its journey. Every night of that month tells a slightly different story. Sometimes the moon lingers long into the dawn, pale against the brightening sky. Sometimes it disappears early, leaving the rest of the night to darkness. Sometimes it hangs near bright planets, seeming to drift among them, though they too are on their own journeys. If you could speed up time, days passing in seconds, you would see the moon's path shift north and south in the sky over the year, tilting with the same rhythm as Earth's seasons. This nodding motion, called lunar standstill, reaches its extremes every 18.6 years. Two ancient sky watchers, these long cycles were part of the moon's deeper character, as regular and dependable as the tide. But tonight, you see only a slice of that great pattern, K, and in that slice is its own completeness. Somewhere in the middle of the night, K, while you sleep, the moon reaches its highest point. Astronomers call this culmination. For a moment, its pull aligns most directly overhead, stretching the ocean beneath and brushing lightly against you. Then it begins its slow descent toward the opposite horizon. This descent is not a fall, but a continuation, the other half of its arc. It carries the moon into the early hours, till at last it dips below the edge of the earth. The light fades, the pull shifts again, and its presence becomes one you feel only through memory. Yet, its journey is not truly over. It moves on, invisible in the daylight, still orbiting, still pulling, still keeping time. The moon is always in motion, always in relationship with you, whether you see it or not. In this way, its path is both constant and ever-changing, the same arc repeated endlessly, yet never in exactly the same light or timing. It is the kind of pattern that invites quiet trust. You might wonder, as you drift, what changes when the moon is at its fullest, when Earth, moon, and sun align so that its face is entirely lit. Does the journey feel different then? Does the pull grow stronger in ways that touch you more deeply? These questions lead you forward, toward the next moment in the cycle, to the time when the moon's touch is at its peak. The moon's journey has brought it here, a moment when its face is fully revealed. Spinned, the line between night and day has placed the sun behind you, the moon in front of you, and Earth in between. Light travels across 93 million miles from the sun, touches the moon's surface, and reflects back to you, filling the night with its brightest silver. This is the full moon, a moment of balance and alignment, though not perfection. In the strictest sense, the moon is perfectly full, only for an instant. The moment when the sun, Earth, and moon are in precise alignment. But for the human eye, this fullness lasts 4 nights on either side, glowing with nearly the same intensity. The full moon is more than light. It is a stronger pull. The gravitational forces of the moon and the sun combine during this alignment to create what are called spring tides. These are not tides of season, but tides of strength, higher highs, lower lows. Oceans swell in greater arcs, and water rushes more vigorously in and out of bays and estuaries. This same gravitational geometry extends to you. You are mostly water, held in place by your body's own boundaries, yet still part of Earth's greater system. The pull is small, almost beyond sensing, but it is constant, a whisper in the background of your biology. Some researchers have explored whether the full moon influences sleep. In certain studies, people have taken slightly longer to fall asleep during the full moon phase, and their deep sleep was reduced. Other studies find no measurable effect at all. Science remains cautious here, knowing that human perception of moonlight and its cultural significance may matter as much as any physical force. For much of history, moonlight, at its fullest, changed the very texture of the night. Before electricity, a full moon meant longer hours for travel, work, or gathering. It made night markets possible, allowed farmers to harvest after sunset, and guided fishing expeditions timed with the stronger tides. It also meant more activity for nocturnal animals. Predators had better visibility. Prey animals had more reason to hide. The landscape was transformed, not in shape, but in mood. Standing outside under a full moon, you notice how shadows sharpen. Trees cast dark silhouettes on silver grass. The air feels clearer, as if the light has washed it. Even if you are indoors, some part of your awareness senses this extra brightness. Through curtains or blinds, the light reaches in, soft but insistent. Ancient cultures often treated the full moon as a turning point, a marker of abundance or culmination. It was the midpoint in the lunar month when what was growing toward fullness could now begin its journey toward release. In some traditions, it was a time to celebrate. In others, it's a time to prepare for the darkening ahead. If you imagine the moon's pull as a hand, then tonight it is gripping most firmly. Not harshly, but with the steady confidence of alignment. The oceans rise a little higher, fall a little deeper. Coral reefs in certain parts of the world release their spawn during full moons, synchronizing with lunar light and tied in a reproductive rhythm millions of years old. In your own body, the alignment changes nothing that you can measure without careful instruments, yet the symbolism remains. Fullness is not just a physical condition. It is a moment of clarity, of seeing things illuminated more completely. There is something humbling in realizing that the moon, at its fullest, is also the same moon you see as a crescent or a thin silver line. Its shape has not changed, only the way sunlight touches it from our perspective. The moon is always whole. The phases are how we experience it from here. Tonight, you're witness to that whole face. Craters catch the light sharply, their edges crisp. The darker seas of ancient lava, the Maria, spread like ink across the glowing disk. If you watch for long enough, you can almost feel the moon's slow drift across the sky, still following the arc of its nightly journey. Even in this moment of brightest presence, the full moon's influence is not confined to Earth's surface. The atmosphere itself bulges slightly under the combined pull of sun and moon. Winds shift subtly. Patterns of water, vapor, and temperature adjust in ways defined for you to feel but large enough to register in careful measurements. In this way, the full moon is a reminder of connection between sky and sea, between tides and time, between the ancient mechanics of orbits and the daily life you live here on the ground. It is a physical fact and a symbol, both an event in the heavens and in the mind. As the night deepens, the moon's brightness remains steady. Only toward dawn will it fade, not by dimming itself, but by letting the sun's arrival wash away the contrast. Still, it will be there, pale against the blue, pulling just as firmly as in the dark. When you next see it in the night sky, it will no longer be completely full. The phase will shift toward waning, the bright edge beginning to retreat. This is the start of a new movement, away from fullness and toward renewal. You might think of this as the moon breathing out after a long, slow inhale. The tides will ease from their highest spring state back toward neap tides, when the pull of moon and sun are at right angles and cancel each other slightly. The light will soften, the nights will deepen again. Yet, even as the light lessens, the pull remains. The moon's influence does not vanish with its brightness. It simply continues, steady and unseen, shaping seas, stirring rhythms, and living things, and marking time in the quiet way only celestial bodies can. And as you watch it slip gradually away from its fullest form, you may feel the draw of curiosity of what happens when this great celestial clock begins to guide not just tides in the ocean, but tides within you. The moon is no longer at its brightest. A small shadow has begun to nibble at its edge, barely visible to the casual glance, but present all the same. The fullness has passed. The tides begin to ease. The night feels slightly deeper, not because the moon's pull has weakened in any true sense, but because the great clock of the sky has moved to its next mark. You, too, are a clock, not in the rigid, mechanical sense, but in the quiet, layered way living bodies keep time. Inside you, countless rhythms hum along, daily cycles of waking and sleeping, monthly or seasonal changes in hormone levels, even longer patterns that unfold over years. Some of these rhythms are tied to the sun's light, others to the earth's rotation, but a few respond in subtle ways to the turning of the moon. Scientists call these patterns circadian rhythms, biological cycles that run on roughly the same 29.5-day period as the moon's phases. In certain marine animals, they are easy to see, spawning timed exactly 2 full or new moons. Migration patterns set by lunar light, feeding behaviors that change with the tides. In humans, they are quieter, harder to measure, but they may still be there. The most visible link between humans and the lunar cycle has long been the connection people have drawn between the moon and sleep. Some studies have found that during the days around the full moon, people take longer to fall asleep and spend less time in deep, restorative stages of rest. Other research finds no consistent effect, and so the question remains open. The moon's light, its pull, and the stories we've told about it for thousands of years may all play a part. But even if the science is cautious, the idea of the moon as a timekeeper for sleep has deep roots. In nights without artificial light, the waxing and waning of moonlight changes how easily you see your surroundings, how safe you feel, and how active you might be before lying down to rest. A bright full moon might keep you awake longer, while a new moon's darkness might encourage earlier sleep. Over generations, such patterns could quietly shape the timing of rest in ways that sink into culture and perhaps even biology. Think of your body as a shoreline. The tides of wakefulness and sleep rise and fall, not in the rushing way of the ocean, but in a slow, steady pulse. Hormones like melatonin begin to rise as the sun sets, telling your body it is time to drift towards sleep. Cortisol, which helps keep you alert, drops lower. In darkness, melatonin production flows more freely. In light, it slows. Now imagine that light not as the sun's overwhelming blaze, but as the moon's gentler silver. When the moon is full, even its faint glow can be enough to register in your eyes, sending signals to your brain that it is not completely night. The message is subtle, like a whisper in the middle of a quiet conversation, but your body can hear it. And so, over thousands of nights, your ancestors may have shifted their behavior, with the lunar phases, sleeping slightly less under the full moon, rising earlier to take advantage of its light, or staying awake to travel, hunt, or gather. This is the lunar clock at work, not a strict ticking mechanism, but a soft influence shaping the edges of human life. There is another layer to this clock, one you may not consciously notice. In women, the menstrual cycle, averaging close to the length of a lunar month, has often been linked to moon phases in both cultural tradition and biology. While the two cycles are not locked together, the parallel in timing has carried symbolic meaning across many societies, reinforcing the sense of connection between human rhythms and lunar time. Even for those who do not experience this monthly rhythm, there is a sense of being carried along by larger cycles. Farmers have long observed the moon to time planting and harvesting. Fishermen watch it to know when tides will be strongest. Sailors still consult lunar tide tables. And in the quiet hours of night, whether you are aware of it or not, your own body continues to keep track, adjusting, balancing, responding. If you were to remove yourself completely from clocks, calendars, and artificial light, you might find that certain patterns emerge naturally. You might sleep longer during the darker phases of the moon, wake more during its brighter nights. You might feel energy peak at certain points in the cycle, or notice moods shifting in ways that align with lunar changes. These effects, if they exist, are subtle, woven into the fabric of life so tightly that they are almost invisible. The moon's clock does not ring alarms or demand punctuality. It marks time in the language of shadows and reflections, in the length of night, in the pull of tides. It reminds you that the keeping of time is not just about minutes and hours, but about the movement of bodies in space. The relationships between light and darkness, the interplay of gravity and motion. Even in sleep, you are not separate from this. As you lie resting, your breathing slows, your heartbeat softens, and your brain moves through stages of deeper and lighter sleep. Each stage is part of a cycle that repeats through the night. And those cycles, in turn, are part of longer rhythms, daily, monthly, seasonal. In this way, you are like the Earth's oceans, surface calm or stormy depending on conditions, but always moving to deeper patterns. The moon's presence, steady and predictable, is one of those patterns, a hand on the clock, turning slowly, guiding without force. The lunar clock does not work alone. It blends with the sun's daily influence in the season's longer arcs. Sometimes they reinforce each other. Sometimes they oppose. But the moon's rhythm is always there. A layer of timing that you may never have measured, but which is written into the history of life on Earth. Lying under this influence, you might feel nothing at all, just the comfort of a familiar night. Yet, if you step outside and see the moon's current shape, you will know your place in its turning, xened, waning, full, or new. Each phase is another mark on the quiet dial by which your body, its own way, keeps time. And perhaps that is the truest part of this lunar clock. It does not need you to watch it to keep working. You are already inside it, moving with its rhythm, whether you notice or not. Your body remembers what your mind forgets, that time is not just measured, but lived. Somewhere above you, the moon continues on its path, marking not just the flow of nights and days, but the gentle shaping of sleep, of waking, of life itself. And as you drift deeper into rest, it will keep turning, keeping time in silence, until its next influence begins to stir another part of you. You wake without fully opening your eyes. The night still hums softly around you, and somewhere far above, the moon continues its steady arc. In the hours since you closed your eyes, countless invisible things have happened, not just in the sky, but within your body. Hormones have shifted. Nerve cells have whispered to one another. The ebb and flow of deep and light sleep has carried you in repeating cycles. We have always wondered if the moon had a hand in this. For centuries, the idea that lunar phases affect human behavior, health, and emotion has woven itself into stories, folklore, and even medical theory. In ancient Greece, physicians like Hippocrates warned that those who slept under the full moon could be more vulnerable to illness. In medieval Europe, lunar calendars were used to plan surgeries and treatments, based on the belief that certain phases of the moon influenced bleeding or healing. These early ideas had no instruments, no measurements, only careful observation, intuition, and the patterns people thought they saw. But science, with its tools and methods, has been trying for decades to measure what is real and what is illusion in the moon's supposed influence. One of the first challenges is that the moon's effects, if they exist in humans, are subtle. Unlike the clear, dramatic tides in the ocean, changes in human sleep, mood, or biology are small and easily masked by other factors: electric light, work schedules, noise, even weather. To detect them, researchers must look at large groups of people over many nights, recording their sleep patterns, hormone levels, or behaviors, and then comparing them to the moon's cycle. In 2013, a team of scientists in Switzerland published a study that quietly rekindled this old question. They analyzed sleep data that had originally been collected for other purposes and noticed something intriguing during the days surrounding a full moon. Participants took about 5 minutes longer to fall asleep, slept for about 20 minutes less, and had lower levels of melatonin, the hormone that signals the body to prepare for sleep. The changes were small, but they were consistent across the group. The researchers had not told participants that the study had anything to do with the moon. The results suggested that the effect was not just psychological expectation. Something, perhaps the brightness of the full moon, perhaps another, more mysterious factor, seemed to nudge the body's sleep timing. Other studies have found similar hints, though not all agree. Some research finds no measurable change at all, suggesting that the moon's influence on modern human sleep may be minimal or easily drowned out by other environmental cues. The truth may lie somewhere in between small, real effects that only show up under certain conditions, or in people whose sensitivity to light and rhythm is stronger. Light, of course, is the most obvious mechanism for most of human history. The only bright lights at night came from the moon, stars, and fire. A full moon can be 25 times brighter than a quarter moon, enough to see clearly outdoors. Before artificial lighting, this extra brightness may have encouraged more evening activity and later sleep. Even indoors, a bright moon shining through an open window could subtly delay the onset of rest. But scientists also wonder if the moon's gravitational pull, the same force that moves the tides, might play a role in living organisms. Marine life. The answer is clearly yes. Coral reefs, for example, synchronize mass spawning events with the lunar cycle. It's often just after a full moon. Certain fish and invertebrates time migrations and feeding patterns to lunar phases. These rhythms can persist even when the animals are kept in constant light or darkness, suggesting that they have internal lunar clocks, biological mechanisms that keep track of the moon's cycle in the absence of direct cues. Do humans have such a clock? The evidence is thin, but intriguing. Some small studies of people living without access to clocks, calendars, or artificial light have found that their sleep patterns and activity levels still show slight rhythms that align with the moon's phases. If true, this would suggest that the human body may retain an ancient, faint ability to track lunar time, left over from a world where the moon's light and pull mattered more to survival. The difficulty is separating what is biological from what is cultural. The moon has such deep symbolic meaning in human history, linked to fertility, romance, madness, and transformation, that people may unconsciously change their behavior simply because they believe the moon affects them. This is the expectation effect, and it can be powerful enough to mimic or mask any true influence. To untangle these threads, modern studies use double-blind methods. or neither the participants nor the researchers collecting the data know the moon's phase at the time. Only after the study is complete do they compare the data to lunar records. This approach reduces bias, but the results remain mixed, some showing small effects, others finding none. Still, the search continues. Some scientists are now turning two massive data sets using sleep tracking devices worn by thousands of volunteers around the world. These devices can record exact sleep and wake times over months or years, providing a detailed map of human rest patterns. When matched with lunar data, these maps might reveal patterns too faint to see in smaller studies. Early findings from such large-scale projects suggest that in some rural, gridded communities without electric light, people tend to stay up later and sleep less on nights with more moonlight, a hint of the past preserved in the present. The science of lunar influence also reaches beyond sleep. Researchers have explored possible links between the moon's phases and mood disorders, emergency room visits, birth rates, and even crime statistics. Most of these studies find no strong, consistent effects, but the persistence of the question itself says something about how deeply we feel the moon's presence. Perhaps the most interesting part of this research is not whether the moon's pull on you is measurable in minutes of sleep or shifts in hormone levels. It is the way the moon invites us to think about connection between the human body and the cycles of nature, between ancient patterns and modern life, between what we can measure and what we can only feel. Science, in this sense, is like standing on a riverbank at night with a net in your hand, trying to catch something invisible in the water. You may catch only hints, a small change in melatonin here, a shift in bedtime there, but each clue adds to the larger picture, and even if the moon's influence turns out to be weaker than folklore suggests, the search itself deepens our understanding of how finely tuned living bodies are to their environments. Above all, the science of lunar influence reminds us that we are not separate from the rest of life on Earth. Our ancestors watched the moon, not because it was mysterious, but because it was useful, a timekeeper, a light source, a guide. Today, we may not depend on it in the same way, but our bodies and minds still move within the same gravitational field, under the same shifting light. And so, as you drift into the next chapter of this journey, the moon remains above you, steady in its orbit, pulling at the oceans and at you with the same quiet force. There is more to feel, more to notice, not just in the mind, but in the dreams that unfold when moonlight touches the edges of sleep. Moonlight has always been a storyteller. It falls in silver across the world, reshaping the familiar into something otherworldly. A tree becomes a shadowed silhouette. A rooftop gleams as if carved from ice. The same transformation happens behind your closed eyes. While your body rests, your mind begins its own theater, a world made of images, its feelings, and fragments of memory stitched together into something that feels whole. The moon has long been accused or celebrated as a co-writer of those dreams. In ancient folklore, it was the lamp that lit the path to visions and omens. Sailors spoke of moon dreams on nights when the light was so bright they swore it seeped into their minds. Poets wrote of the moon as a weaver, threading dreams into sleepers' thoughts. And in some traditions, dreams seen under the full moon were said to be prophetic, not just the echoes of the day, but windows into what might come. Science approaches this more cautiously. Dreams are notoriously difficult to study because they vanish so quickly after waking. Most of what we know comes from people in sleep laboratories, woken during specific stages of sleep and asked to recall what they were experiencing. Even then, the memory is fragile, already beginning to dissolve. What researchers can measure, however, is how the moon may influence the architecture of sleep, the structure and depth of its stages. Sleep is not a uniform state. It moves in, repeating cycles of light sleep, deep slow-wave sleep, and REM sleep, the stage most closely linked to vivid dreaming. If the moon affects the amount of time spent in each stage, it may subtly shape the intensity or clarity of dreams. Some studies, including the one we explored in the last chapter, have found that around the full moon, people may spend less time in deep sleep and take longer to reach REM stages. If REM is shortened or delayed, dreams might feel briefer, more fragmented, or harder to remember. Conversely, on darker nights, when melatonin levels are higher and deep sleep is more abundant, dreams may feel richer and more immersive. This is not a fixed rule. Many other factors play a role, from stress to diet to room temperature. But the possibility that a light 380,000 kilometers away can shift the chemistry of your brain enough to touch the shape of your dreams is a reminder of how delicately connected we are to the wider world. You can think of sleep as a tide, rising and falling through its stages. REM is like the crest of that tide, when the waters of the mind overflow into imagery and story. The moon, with its own gravitational rhythm, may tug ever so slightly on this inner ocean, altering the timing of those crests. The result is not a new dream written from scratch, but a dream rearranged like a deck of cards, shuffled into a different order. It's worth pausing here to remember that dreams are not simply random noise. During REM, the brain is highly active, almost as if awake, but it is processing information differently. Emotional memories are replayed and refiled. Fragments of the day's experiences mingle with older memories, producing strange combinations that can carry deep meaning or none at all. Your brain may take the face of a stranger you saw in the street and place it in the kitchen of your childhood home, speaking words you've never heard before. This is not chaos. It is the mind exploring possibility, making and breaking connections. If the moon's light or timing shifts the boundaries of REM, then it is shifting the space in which this creative recombination happens. Shorter REM period might mean fewer opportunities for those distant memories to be pulled into the foreground. A longer one might lead to dreams that linger in the mind upon waking, vivid enough to be written down or remembered for years. There is also the possibility that the moon's influence is indirect, acting not through gravity or light alone, but through the way it changes human behavior at night. In pre-electric times, a bright full moon could mean more time spent outdoors, more conversations held late into the evening, more sensory impressions gathered before bed. All of these could feed into the dream world, giving it new material to work with today in cities glowing with artificial light. We are less dependent on the moon's illumination, yet some of its quiet influence may persist. Even a faint increase in bedroom light can delay melatonin release, which shifts the timing of REM cycles. And for people who are especially sensitive to natural rhythms, the moon's phase may act like a soft metronome, keeping time for the body's inner clocks. There's an intriguing overlap here with animal studies. Certain nocturnal animals adjust their foraging or mating behavior based on lunar light, and some appear to have corresponding changes in rest or sleep. If such patterns are widespread in the animal kingdom, it is not unreasonable to think that humans, too, might carry some vestige of this lunar sensitivity, even if it now manifests only in subtle changes to sleep and dreaming. But science has not fully caught up to folklore. For every study suggesting a lunar effect on dreams, there is another finding, no connection at all. It may be that the moon's influence is real, but small, detectable only under specific conditions, or it may be that our deep cultural association between the moon and dreams primes us to link the two, even when the connection is coincidental. Here is where the boundary between science and story becomes porous. Perhaps the moon's true influence lies not in altering the brain's sleep stages directly, but in the way it shapes our relationship to night. A full moon changes the way the world looks and feels. It draws us to windows, to open fields, to the sight of shadows stretched long and pale. Even if the dreams themselves are unchanged, the meaning we give them may be transformed by the knowledge that they were dreamt under moonlight. And so the moon, whether by physics or by poetry, becomes a participant in our sleeping life. Light may brush the edges of your dream, turning a dimly lit room into one silvered with a faint glow. Its timing may shorten or lengthen the night's cycles, deciding how many times you will drift into that vivid REM tide. Or it may simply be a quiet witness, present, constant, watching as you travel through landscapes of your own making. You cannot always choose your dreams, but you can choose to notice them. Keep a notebook by your bed. On nights when the moon is full or nearly full, write down whatever fragments you remember upon waking, even if they are only single images or emotions. Over time, you may see patterns emerge, not just in the dreams themselves, but in the way you respond to the moon's presence. Whether these patterns are shaped by biology, by expectation, or by a mixture of both, they are real in your experience. And in the realm of dreams, the line between what is felt and what is measured is not always worth drawing too sharply. The moon will rise again tonight, whether or not you watch it. Somewhere in your mind, its light may find a path into the quiet theater of sleep, where memories shuffle and stories unfold. And when you wake, the dream will be gone, but something of it will remain. Like the silver reflection of moonlight on still water, as we step onward, the question lingers: if the moon's pull can reach your dreams, what of the water within you, the rivers and tides that flow through your own body? Perhaps the next tide we explore is not in the mind, but in the blood itself. You are a walking tide beneath your skin, in your veins and cells. The vast majority of you is water. It's not in rushing waves like the ocean, but in smaller, quieter bodies, a network of rivers, streams, and reservoirs that sustain your life. In every moment, from the moment you are born, water shapes you. It cushions you in the womb, fills each cell, and carries the molecules that keep you alive. About 60% of your body's mass is water. In infants, it's even higher, more than 70%. Water is not simply inside you, It's part of you, woven into your very structure. And just as the moon draws the oceans into tides, it exerts its pull on you. The force is gentle, far too small for you to feel in the way you'd feel the tug of a wave, but it is there, constant and unbroken. The same gravity that holds the moon in orbit is reaching into every drop within you. When we think of tides, we picture coastlines transformed, the sea sweeping forward to cover the sand, then retreating again to reveal it. These shifts are dramatic, measurable in meters. Inside you, the shifts are subtle, microscopic, and synchronized to countless other rhythms of your body. But the principle is the same. The moon's gravity acts on all water. Wherever it resides, imagine for a moment that you could see the pull. You might watch the fluid in your cells and blood shifting ever so slightly in rhythm with the moon's movement overhead. This is not a wave that moves you from side to side, but a gentle, whole body lean toward the moon's position in the sky. A lean too small to register in your conscious senses, but as precise as the clockwork of the cosmos. Some scientists believe this subtle tug may interact with the body's other natural rhythms. Our circadian clock, the daily rhythm driven by sunlight, is the most well known, but we also carry infradian rhythms, which span longer cycles, such as the roughly 29.5-day lunar month. Certain biological processes may have evolved in quiet partnership with these longer cycles, their timing subtly tuned to the moon's phases. For example, in some coastal species, reproduction is directly tied to the tides, ensuring that eggs or larvae are released when currents are most favorable for survival. In humans, the connection is less obvious, but hints remain. The average menstrual cycle is close to the length of the lunar month, And in some studies, sleep patterns have shown repeating changes over this period. Whether these rhythms are remnants of a deep evolutionary link or coincidences reinforced by culture, they speak to an enduring resonance between our inner waters and the Moon's steady motion. The fluid inside you does more than fill space. It transports oxygen from your lungs to your tissues, carries nutrients to your cells, moves waste, regulates temperature, and supports every chemical reaction that keeps you alive. Without it, there is no life, and it is all, in some measure, under the same gravitational influence that moves oceans and seas. Consider your blood a river of red, flowing through an intricate delta of vessels. About half of its volume is plasma, and plasma is mostly water. This river flows tirelessly, completing its circuit through your body in less than a minute. And as it moves, the moon moves with it, exerting its quiet, patient influence. It is humbling to think that something as vast as the moon, a body more than 2,000 miles across, suspended nearly 250,000 miles away, should be linked, even faintly, to the smallest motions of liquid inside you. The connection is not dramatic or forceful. It is gentle, almost ceremonial, a reminder that you are never entirely separate from the larger motions of the universe. The pull is not only physical. Water has always been a mirror for the moon, catching its light in lakes, ponds, and puddles. Even in folklore and art, the two are bound together. For many traditions, water under moonlight is considered potent, imbued with magic or mystery. Poets have described the moon as bathing in rivers, or rivers as carrying the moon toward the sea. In these images, the bond between moon and water is more than physics. It is a shared language of reflection and change. Modern science approaches the connection differently, but the awe remains. Studies on fluid dynamics, human physiology, and gravity all point to the same fact. The moon's pull does not stop at the shoreline. It extends into the human body, into the water in plants, into the moisture in the soil. Every drop responds, however faintly, dispute the distant satellite's gravity. The awareness of this can change the way you think about yourself. You are not only standing on the earth, you are part of a greater Earth-Moon system connected by the invisible fabric of gravity. When the moon pulls on the oceans, it pulls on you. When it moves away, for it drifts a tiny bit farther from Earth each year, it takes with it an infinitesimal shift in that pull. This is not something you need to feel to be real. Many of the most profound connections in the universe work quietly, without demanding your attention. Your heart beats without conscious command. Your cells repair themselves while you sleep, and the moon, in its distant orbit, draws the water inside you as naturally as it draws the tides. If you have ever floated in the sea beneath the full moon, you may have felt something of this connection, not as a measurable force, but as a sensation of belonging. The water around you and the water within you were both answering to the same call. As the waves lifted and fell, and your body rose and fell with them. It is a reminder that you are, in some ways, continuous with the ocean, a fragment of it carried within flesh and bone. Even on land, far from the shore, this continuity remains. The moisture in your skin, the fluids in your organs, the clear liquid in your eyes, all of it is part of Earth's great reservoir. You are not an island. You are a tide contained in a human form, and of the moon, silent and patient above you, knows the measure of that tide. In a way, every heartbeat is an echo of the lunar rhythm. The moon's orbit and the tides it shapes have been part of life on Earth for billions of years, long before humans walked the land. At least organisms evolved in tidal pools, where cycles of flooding and draining were dictated by the moon's pull. Some of that ancient pattern is still written in your body, not in a way that you can consciously track, but in the deep structure of your biology. It is possible that the pull of the moon on your water is less important for its measurable effect than for the way it reminds us of a greater truth. We are inseparable from the systems we inhabit. The oceans, the atmosphere, the moon, the sun, all of them shape us in ways both large and small. And water, being the most adaptable of substances, carries those influences easily. It's flowing through us like a record of the world's motions. If you could listen to the water in your body as you sleep, perhaps you would hear it answering the moon's call, not in waves or splashes, but in a slow, steady hum, a kind of cellular tide. And if you could follow that hum outward, it would lead you past your skin, past the air, past the trees and buildings, all the way to the open ocean, where the same hum becomes the sound of the sea breathing under the moon's watch. You may not notice it as you drift into sleep tonight, but the moon is there, tugging at every drop, reminding you that you are not separate from the water or the world. You are part of a tide that began long before you and will continue long after. And as we follow that tide, we arrive at another truth, that the pull you feel is not one you can escape, okay? It is written into the mechanics of the universe itself. You do not need to see the moon to feel it. Its pull threads through the world so completely that even on the darkest, cloud-heavy nights, when its silver glow is hidden, its hand is still on you. It does not matter whether you are awake or dreaming, whether you are standing on a mountain ridge or lying deep beneath the blankets of your bed. The moon does not wait for your attention. It acts without asking. Gravity is not a sensation you can point to. It is not a breeze across your cheek or the warmth of sunlight on your skin. It is deeper than that tan invisible current that runs through the very architecture of your body, binding you to the ground beneath you and the ground itself to the silent companions circling above. The moon's pull is everywhere, always. If you were to stand perfectly still in a quiet room, you might believe that nothing is moving, but this is never true. Even now, the moon is gently drawing you toward it, your body rising imperceptibly toward the sky, your weight fractionally lighter than it would be if the moon were not there. The earth itself feels this swelling and shifting in ways you cannot see, and within that movement, you, too, are carried. The same pull that guides tides across the world's oceans reaches into the very tissues of your body. More than half of you is water, in your cells, in your blood, in the soft currents of your lymph, in the quiet depths of your organs. There is movement. It is slow, it is small, but it is in harmony with the moon's gravity. Just as a harbor fills and empties with the tide, so too do you experience subtle shifts, drawn in time with the great clock in the sky. Imagine standing at the shore when the tide is turning. At first, it is not obvious. The water simply laps at your feet as it always does. But soon you notice the pattern, the gentle retreat, the return, the deepening pull. Your body responds in the same way, though you cannot feel it. It is a rhythm that happens below the threshold of sensation, so steady and so old that life itself evolved within its timing. If you could slow time enough to watch the earth from space, you would see how profound this pull is. The oceans bulge outward beneath the moon's position, and on the opposite side of the planet, they bulge again. It's caught in the dance between the earth's spin and the moon's gravity. This is not just water being moved, it is an entire planet, responding to the presence of another world. Akeem, and you are part of that planet. Akeem move because it moves. The moon's gravity is like a soft voice in a vast, silent hall. It does not shout, it whispers, but it whispers to everything. It does not care whether you are listening. It does not need your awareness to affect you. In this way, the moon is one of the quietest yet most constant forces in your life. You may go days or weeks without thinking of it, but not a single second passes without its influence. For billions of years, this pull has shaped life. Long before humans watched the moon and measured its cycles, long before we named its phases, or told stories about its silver face, the pull was there. It governed the spawning of corals, the migration of sea turtles, the feeding patterns of coastal birds. It told the ocean when to rise and when to rest. It set the pace for entire ecosystems, a clock so vast and reliable that no creature ever questioned it. And here you are, A modern human surrounded by lights and walls, and still the same clock moves within you. Your blood does not know about electricity or schedules. Your cells do not care that you can close the curtains and block the moon's light. The pull is not about seeing it, it's about being connected. Some have tried to measure the direct effect of the moon on human bodies. Scientists have looked for patterns in sleep cycles, shifts in hormone levels, subtle changes in blood pressure. The evidence is delicate, but hints emerge tiny variations that seem to match the moon's phases, as if our bodies remember something our minds have long forgotten. The idea is not strange if you consider the deep past of life on Earth. We evolved under this constant, precise force. Why should it not still guide us in ways we do not fully understand? You may wonder why the moon's pull matters when the sun's gravity is far stronger. It is true the sun keeps us in orbit, and its force holds more sway over the Earth's path, but the sun's influence is steady, even. The moon's is dynamic. It changes with its position relative to you. It passes overhead. It dips low on the horizon. It waxes. It wanes. It pulls the oceans in waves, and those waves wash through everything the oceans touch, including the air, the weather, and, in their own way, you. That is not a force you can step away from. If you traveled to another continent, the moon would still be there, tugging at your every step. If you hid in the deepest cave, sealed away from light, the pull would follow you. Even astronauts who have left the Earth carry the moon's influence with them, for the pull is not bound by the places we think of as here or there. Gravity stretches through space without end, always reaching. You might think of it like the slow sway of a hammock. You may not notice the moment it begins to move, but once it does, every fiber of you responds. Even at rest, you are part of a conversation between worlds of call and response, made not in words, but in motion. When you sleep, your awareness of the outside world quiets, but your body remains in that conversation. Your fluids shift, your balance of pressure changes ever so slightly. Your heartbeat and breathing fall into rhythms that echo the great turning above you. Without knowing it, you are part of a tide that flows endlessly, whether you are awake or dreaming. The moon's pull is also a reminder that you are not separate from the cosmos. The walls around you, the roof above, the bed beneath, these do not shield you from the fabric of the universe. They only give you the illusion of being still. In truth, you are moving, pulled, turned, and carried through space in a choreography, older than life itself. Sometimes, this knowledge feels like a comfort, to know that you are never outside of nature, never apart from its patterns, even in your most private moments, is to feel connected. Other times, it is humbling. We think of ourselves as grounded, in control, but gravity, this silent, tireless force, reminds us that we are always participants in something much larger. If you could hear gravity, what would it sound like? Perhaps it would be like the deep resonance of a low drum, played so slowly that each beat comes only once every few hours. Perhaps it would sound like nothing at all, the way the mind cannot hear its own heartbeat unless it is still enough. The moon's pull is a background note in the music of the earth, one you feel in your bones without ever needing to listen, and maybe that is the lesson it offers. Not everything that shapes you needs to be noticed to be real. The world is full of invisible hands that steady, guide, and connect. Some are fleeting, others eternal. The moon's pull is one of the eternal ones, even now, as you breathe in and out. The moon is above or beyond the horizon, tugging at the waters of the earth, tugging at the waters in you. This pull is not an invitation, is not a request. It simply is. Cannot refuse it, and you cannot lose it. When you look up at night and see the moon's face, you are not looking at a distant stranger. You are looking at a partner in motion, a constant in your story. It has always been there, and as long as it circles the earth, it will always be with you, drawing you along in its dance. And as you lie beneath that gentle force, you might wonder about what else it touches, not only the seas and the clouds, but the smallest, most vital rhythms inside you. You might wonder how, in the dark and the quiet, your very heartbeat finds its place in the moon's timeless pull. Your heart beats whether you notice it or not, a steady, tireless rhythm, marking each moment with a quiet insistence. In the stillness of night, beneath blankets, with eyes closed, it continues its work. You may feel it only in rare moments. Soft thud in your chest, a pulse in your wrist, a deep awareness in your ears when all else is silent. But it is always there, a personal tide, moving in time with the larger world beyond you. We often think of the heart as a private metronome, keeping its own pace, unaffected by the world outside. But the truth is softer and more connected. Your heartbeat is not an isolated rhythm, it's tuned by the conditions around you. Temperature, light, sound, and even the pull of the moon can leave gentle fingerprints on its tempo. This influence is not loud. It will not make your heart suddenly race under a full moon, nor slow it to a crawl beneath a crescent. Instead, the moon's touch is measured in subtlety shifts, so slight they are almost beyond measure. But like the tide, they are steady, dependable, and woven into the fabric of your life. You are mostly water. Your blood, your lymph, the fluids cushioning every syllable respond to gravity in ways your mind does not perceive. When the moon draws the seas into bulging tides, the same pull extends to the fluid systems of your body. It is a smaller movement, far less dramatic than an ocean shore retreating and returning, but it is there. And the heart, master of this fluid world within you, responds to the tiniest change in flow. Picture the ocean for a moment. Waves are driven by wind and shaped by the moon. The tide lifts and lowers the baseline on which those waves travel. Your circulatory system works in a similar way. Your heart sends out pulses like waves, but the entire system rests on an invisible baseline influenced by forces you never see. The moon's pull is one such force, a silent lifting and lowering that shapes how the waves move. Scientists have found that heart rates can show tiny variations over the course of the lunar month. In some studies, these changes appear in patterns that align with the moon's phases. Slight increases in resting heart rate during certain points of the cycle, followed by subtle decreases at others. The reasons are not fully understood, but one possibility is that these shifts are connected to our body's water balance, hormones, and sleep cycles, all of which are touched, however gently, by the moon. Even if you cannot feel it, the connection exists. Your heartbeat is not separate from the tides. It is a tide of its own, rising and falling in ways that mirror the ancient dance between earth and moon. Consider the way you feel on a calm night, standing outdoors beneath a bright moon. You may sense a strange stillness, as if the world has paused for a breath. In that moment, your own breathing may slow. Your muscles loosen. Your heartbeat softens into a pace that feels almost in sync with the still air. It is not that the moon commands this directly, but rather that you and the environment you inhabit are parts of the same system, moving together. There is something deeply reassuring about this. Your heartbeat, a small and personal rhythm, belongs to the same order of motion that keeps oceans in balance and holds the moon in its orbit. You are not just living in the universe, you are moving with it. Every pulse in your veins is another turn of the great wheel. Think, too, of your ancestors. Long before the word gravity was ever spoken, they lived beneath the same moon, watching it wax and wane. They felt their hearts quicken in the thrill of night hunts, or soften to the pace of quiet fires. They noticed the moon's pull, not as a scientific fact, but as part of the rhythm of existence. Perhaps they felt the same quiet link you can sense now, lying still and listening to the soft beat in your chest. Your heart is more than a pump, it is a listener. It responds to your thoughts, your emotions, your surroundings, and somewhere in that web of influences is the moon, steady and constant. A partner whose song plays at a frequency too low for the ear, but not too faint for the body to hear. Imagine the moon as a conductor, not waving its arms with drama, but simply standing before the orchestra of earth, setting a tempo with the smallest gesture. Your heart is one instrument in that orchestra, playing its part, keeping the music alive. The music itself is the flow of life, the migrations, the tides, the weather, the turning of the planet, and the beating of every living heart. This does not mean that you are powerless, only that you are part of something vast. The knowledge that your heartbeat is connected to forces older than humanity can bring a sense of peace. You are not alone in your rhythm. The same pull that moves the seas moves you. In moments of stillness, you can feel this connection more clearly. Place your hand lightly over your heart and listen not just to the thump, but to the quiet spaces in between. Those spaces, too, are part of the rhythm. They are the pauses in the tide, the moment when the water is neither advancing nor retreating, suspended between one state and the next. As you rest, your heartbeat slows, your breathing deepens. The pull of the moon is constant, but in the quiet of sleep, it becomes easier to imagine that you can sense it. Your heart, steady and tireless, keeps perfect time with your body's needs. And perhaps, in some small way, with the turning of the moon above you, somewhere far above, beyond clouds and air, the moon moves across the sky. It is not thinking of you, but it does not need to. The laws of nature ensure that you are connected. You are two dancers in the same choreography, moving to music that neither of you can stop. The moon has pulled at the hearts of poets and scientists alike, just in metaphor, but in curiosity. How does a distant sphere of rock shape the lives of those who never touch it? How can something so far away be so deeply entangled in the biology of the living world? The answers are written in physics, in chemistry, in the way matter bends to gravity. But they are also written in the quiet awe that comes from standing beneath the moon and feeling, only for a moment, that your heartbeat is not entirely your own. And perhaps that is the truth at the core of this thought. Your heartbeat belongs to you, but it also belongs to the earth, and to the moon, and to the cosmos. Every beat is yours, and yet every beat is also part of a rhythm that began long before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. The night deepens. The moon's path carries it onward. Your heart continues, beat by beat, unbroken, faithful. Above you, tides are turning in the oceans. Within you, tides are turning in the blood. Both obey the same pull, the same law, the same quiet and irresistible force. And as you lie here, listening to the slow music of your own body, you might begin to sense something even deeper than the moon's pull bond that reaches back to the first living cells, to the oceans where life began, to the moment the moon itself was born from the earth. That bond is the thread that connects you to the ancient past and carries you into the next moment. A thread that will lead us into the next thought, where we will explore not just your heartbeat, but the ancient bond that ties all life to the moon's eternal journey. Before the first cities rose, before the first walls were built, before the first human voice called out to another across the darkness, there was the moon. It was the same moon you see now, slightly worn with craters, wrapped in silver light, moving in its patient orbit, and long before human eyes looked up at it, other creatures had already shaped their lives to its rhythm. In the beginning, life began in the water, not in quiet lakes, but in the vast, restless oceans that swelled and retreated under the pull of the moon. Every creature in those early seas lived in a world where the shoreline changed, not just with storms and seasons, but with the twice daily breathing of the tides. Imagine the earliest organisms clinging to rocks in shallow pools. When the tide rose, they were bathed in fresh nutrients, oxygen-rich water flowing over them. When it fell, they endured air and sunlight, or the stillness of a slowly evaporating pool. Survival meant learning the moon's clock, knowing when to open and feed, and when to close tight and endure. Over millions of years, the moon's pull became part of life's blueprint. Tidal cycles shaped not only where creatures could live, but when they would move, feed, and reproduce. Even now, crabs and fish still spawn according to the lunar calendar, laying eggs during spring tides when the pull of the moon and sun combine to bring water farthest inland. When the first animals left the sea for land, they carried something invisible with them, an internal memory of the moon's rhythm. The earliest amphibians still returned to water to lay their eggs, timing their journeys to the high tides. Over time, as species changed and spread, this lunar awareness faded for some, but never completely vanished. Even now, traces of it remain in the deep layers of our biology. Long before humans understood why the moon moved as it did, they were already living by its light and darkness. Hunter-gatherer groups noticed that certain animals appeared more often under a full moon, while others vanished into the shadows. Early fishers learned that coastal waters brought greater harvests during particular phases. Nomadic people planned migrations and hunts with one eye on the sky, letting the moon guide their sense of time. To them, the moon was not just an object. In the sky was a calendar, a companion, a silent clock. In the absence of machines and artificial light, its phases marked the passing of weeks. Crescent to half, half to full, full to dark. It was the measure by which planting, traveling, and gathering could be planned. Our own ancestors once lived in direct conversation with the moon's cycles. In its waxing light, they moved more. At night, extending their days. In its darkness, they rested longer, sleeping deeply in the safety of shadows. The pattern was instinctive. It's not forced a balance between activity and rest that echoed the lunar month. Even as humans built villages, then towns, then cities, they carried these patterns forward. Its agriculture, too, was shaped by the moon. In many traditions, planting and harvesting were aligned with lunar phases. Farmers believed that seeds sown under certain moons grew stronger, and that harvests gathered under others kept longer. These beliefs were not always based on modern science, but they carried within them a truth. The moon's phases influence water, weather, and living rhythms in ways that can ripple into human life. Consider the way we still speak of time months, menstrual cycles, patterns of rest that all quietly echo the moon's motion. Even in the electric glow of modern life, where we can work through any hour and eat in any season, the body remembers. The rhythms are quieter now, harder to hear through the constant noise. But they remain. If you were to strip away the hum of machines, the buzz of lights, the schedules of modern work, you would begin to notice them again. You might sleep more deeply during the new moon's darkness and stir more easily under a bright, full moon. You might feel subtle changes in energy as the month unfolds, without realizing that the moon's phases are passing silently above you. This is the ancient bond, the one that began in tidal pools billions of years ago and runs. It's unbroken through every living being that has ever walked the earth. It is not a mystical chain, but a physical, gravitational relationship written into the way water moves and life adapts. You are connected to it in every breath you take, every drop of blood in your veins, every heartbeat that carries the faint echo of an ocean wave. The moon has been both a constant and a witness. It was there when the first forests spread across the land. It was there when dinosaurs roamed under its glow. It was there when the first humans painted their stories on cave walls, perhaps glancing up at the same silver disk before closing their eyes. There is comfort in knowing that no matter how much the world changes, the moon continues its journey. Empires have risen and fallen, Languages have been born and forgotten. Entire species have appeared and vanished. And still, the moon rises over the horizon and sets beyond it, as it has for 4.5 billion years. Your life is a brief moment in that timeline, but it is no less connected. Just as the moon once told ancient sailors when to set sail and when to wait for calmer tides, it still speaks to your body in ways you may never consciously notice. It touches the fluids that flow through you, the hormones that shift with your circadian rhythms, the pace of your heartbeat as you rest beneath its light. Think of it as an inheritance, not something written on paper, but something written in you. You carry the memory of the moon's pool in your cells, the way tree rings carry the memory of seasons past. The ocean inside you is smaller now, contained within skin and bone, but it still sways to that old rhythm. And so, even as you sleep, in a room shielded from its light, the moon is with you. Not as a watcher, not as a mystical force, but as a partner in a relationship older than humanity itself. You move through the night as your ancestors once did, carried gently on a tide that has never stopped flowing. There will always be a part of you that belongs to this cycle. No matter how many artificial lights fill the streets, no matter how precise our clocks become, no matter how far technology carries us from the natural world, the pull remains. It is the silent contract between Earth and Moon, and we are all bound by it. This bond is not something to resist. It is something to remember. To live with awareness of it is to feel the world in a deeper way, to know that your life is part of a rhythm shared by oceans, forests, and creatures in the deepest trenches of the sea. When you step outside on a clear night and look up, you are not just seeing the moon as it is now, you are seeing the same moon that lit the paths of migrating herds, that guided turtles back to the beaches where they were born, that reflected in the eyes of the first people to tell stories under the stars. And as you return indoors, perhaps to sleep, you carry that light with you. Not in your hands, but in your body, in the pulse of your blood, the timing of your rest, the quiet knowledge that you are part of something that began before memory and will continue long after. The bond remains. The tide moves. The moon goes on, and you go on with it. And as you drift towards sleep, this thought comes. The tide in your veins will not end when the moon sets. It will keep flowing into the unseen hours, into the quiet territory of dreams, where the night tide will carry you into the next chapter. The night tide in your veins, the closing step in this lunar journey. The tide does not end at the shore. It continues within you, in the quiet rivers of blood, in the slow drift of lymph through hidden channels, in the rhythm of breath that draws in the air and releases it again. You are, in this moment, both a landscape and a current still to the eye, cool, but in motion deep inside. The moon's pool does not crash within you like a storm wave. It is subtle, patient. It touches you, not with force, but with the faintest pressure, so gentle that you cannot feel it, yet constant enough that your body cannot ignore it. You lie there, unaware, but in the liquid world beneath your skin. The silver tide passes through. Your heart is its tide clock. With each beat, blood is pushed into the arteries, traveling outward to the farthest reaches of you, the fingertips, the crown of your head, the tips of your toes. Then it returns, drawn back toward the heart, as if answering the pull of something older than the body itself. Though the moon's gravity moves the vast oceans far more dramatically than the fluids inside you, it is still there, influencing, aligning, nudging the subtle ebb and flow. Some scientists have measured small shifts in biological patterns during different lunar phases, variations in hormone levels, sleep cycles, even cell activity. These are not great surges, not the roaring tides of the coast, but quiet ripples in the body's internal sea. Imagine, for a moment, that you could see it happening. Your blood carrying oxygen, nutrients, and chemical signals, sways in an invisible rhythm. In one phase of the moon, this rhythm feels slightly fuller, richer. In another, it feels quieter, slower. And though you cannot sense these changes directly, your body notices, your cells notice. In ancient times, people believed the moon ruled over water, not only in the seas and rivers, but in plants, animals, and themselves. They spoke of it as a conductor of life's movements, a silent keeper of the deep pulse that ran through all living things. And while today we measure and explain with instruments, that belief still carries a kind of truth, because you are mostly water. More than half of your body's weight is fluid, salty, mineral-rich, and not so different from the seawater where life began. This water moves in patterns, in circulation, in respiration, in the rise and fall of pressure within your tissues. It is affected by temperature, by diet, by the seasons and, yes, by the steady presence of the moon overhead. Tonight, as you lie in the dark, the moon is somewhere above the Earth's horizon, perhaps visible through clouds, perhaps hidden, but always present. Its orbit is unbroken. Its pull reaches through the atmosphere, through your roof and walls, through your skin, and within you, the night tide responds. This tide is not just physical, it's chemical, too. Your brain releases hormones and cycles that can be influenced by light and by the moon's position. Melatonin, the hormone that helps guide sleep, rises more easily in the absence of light. Yet some studies suggest it may dip slightly during the full moon, as if the body remembers the brightness of ancient nights. Cortisol, the hormone that helps keep you awake and alert, also shifts in small ways with lunar phases. These changes are not large enough to rule your life, but they whisper at the edges of your rhythms, subtle reminders that you are not separate from the cycles of the sky. Even your dreams may float in this tide. Some research hints that people may experience more vivid dreams during certain phases of the moon, though science still searches for the reason. It could be the change in sleep depth, or perhaps a connection that runs deeper, something from the long past when our ancestors lived closer to the natural night, when moonlight could mean safety or danger, movement or stillness, and so you dream in its light or in its absence, carried along by the night tide within. If you could magnify your body to see every droplet of blood, every particle in the lymph, every grain of moisture in your tissues, you would see that you are an ocean in miniature. Channels branch like rivers, veins wind like estuaries. Waves of electrical signals pass through the heart and along the nerves, guiding the currents of the inner sea. The moon pulls on all of this, just as it pulls on the ocean beyond your window. And though the effect is minute, almost immeasurable, in the vast machinery of your body, it is part of the same story. The same force that draws the water up a beach at midnight is at work in the liquid depths of you. You are not only influenced by the moon, you are synchronized with it. The length of the lunar month once guided human activity, long before the invention of the modern calendar. It still lingers in cultural rituals, in fishing seasons, in the timing of certain festivals, and, deep inside, it lingers in the unspoken rhythms of your organs and cells. Somewhere in your body right now, a cell is dividing, making a perfect copy of itself. Somewhere else, a neuron is firing a signal that will travel the length of a nerve to trigger a muscle fiber. Somewhere else, still, a cluster of immune cells is drifting through your lymph, ready to respond to any sign of trouble. All of these movements happen within the larger movement of the tide, the constant, circulating motion that keeps you alive. And though the moon will not decide whether a cell divides or an impulse fires, it shares the stage with them, shaping the conditions in which they happen, just as it shapes the rise and fall of the seas when you were born. The moon was in a particular place in its orbit, a silent witness to your first breath. It has circled the Earth thousands of times since then, and in each orbit, you have lived your days and nights within its pull. It has been with you through every heartbeat, through every breath, through every tide of emotion and thought. And now, as you rest, it is still there far above, but connected to you in this